Good afternoon, Trump family. Have a good day and God bless you. Welcome to Open Source News. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on that notifications bell so you don't miss a thing. Alright, the following is a collection of news from Patriots. Let's get into the news. It is readily approaching, and you know what else is approaching, right? The midterms. That's what's approaching, and my do we have the perfect gift coming to the fore that will propel ultra-maggot candidates over the finish line. I'm sure you've all been following the absurd, the utterly insane, the literally cringeworthy hypocrisy of our woke liberal elite, our champagne socialists, who some other vacation homes and Martha's Vineyard. I mean, these are the very liberal elite residents. Okay, the whos were the rich and famous, who voted for Biden in 2020 by a massive more. 80% of Martha's Vineyard voted for a guy who can't even ride a bike, or you need training wheels for heaven's sakes. They voted for open borders. They voted for a total breakdown in our immigration system. They voted for ending decisively the construction of the wall. And so Florida Governor Ron DeSantis decided to send them a little present. It's Christmas early, right? He sent upwards of about 50 migrants to the posh resort area of Martha's Vineyard, in effect, saying, hey, you voted for this, well then enjoy, right? You want this? He got it. And so these migrants showed up on the island, where the average price of a home is over $1 million. And how did this posh island community, made up of 89% white Democrats, how did they respond? They actually had the gall to call out the National Guard to, shall we say, deport these migrants from their island. You cannot make this shit up. The Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker deployed up to 125 National Guard members to remove the migrants from Martha's Vineyard and relocate them to a base at Cape Cod. And all of this happened within 24 hours after they arrived. And the reason, again, I kid you not. This is not fiction. The reason given is that these 50 migrants showing up at the doorstep some of the wealthiest people in the nation was, quote, causing a, quote, humanitarian crisis. This is a humanitarian 50 migrants crossing our moat border, entering into our community. This is a crisis the likes of which humanity has never even imagined. Getting this really happened. And the beauty of it is that this indescribable rank stinking liberal leftist hypocrisy was on display for everyone to say. Everyone is talking about it today. How much these people of Martha's Vineyard are absolute and total losers. What a group of vile sick phonies. Texas Senator Ted Cruz called them out on this. He know that when 50 migrants all died from heatstroke in the back of a truck a few weeks back, not a single liberal gave a crap. But then 50 migrants show up at their front door in Martha's Vineyard, and they scream humanitarian crisis and call out the freaking National Guard, and to do what? To deport them from their island. What a bunch of other lowlies. And all of this is precisely what they voted for. They voted for open borders. They voted for the man and the policies that made these people showing up at their doorsteps possible. Really are the single most repulsive, loathsome hypocrites on the planet. But what makes this hypocrisy even worse is the fact that this is the very last issue the Democrats want on the front burner going into the midterms. This is delicious. Okay. They're already getting slammed. If you think it through, they're already getting slammed with the highest inflation for 2 years. They're getting slammed with a recession. They're getting slammed with a record high gas prices. They're getting slammed with supply chain interruptions. They're getting slammed with an epidemic of violent crime epidemic in our imploding cities. The last possible thing that any Democrat will want back on the front burner before the midterms is perhaps the single most unpopular issue in the nation right now, bar none in terms of policy. NPR just had a piece up on a poll they conducted along with IPSOS, and they found that the majority of the population does not just see the southern border as a crisis. They actually see it as a, quote, invasion. That's what the NPR article actually was freaking out over, since they're all libs over an NPR. They were freaking out that all of this invasion language that we're hearing from Kari Lake in Arizona or Greg Abbott in Texas or Ron DeSantis in Florida, they're freaking out that it's resonating. It's working. 53% of those polled believe that we're seeing nothing short of an actual invasion at our southern border. 53%, but that's hardly an outlier. Okay. Every single poll out there, and Democrats know this. Every poll shows a bumbling binding the Democrats are getting crushed on the southern border. Remember, a lot of Democrats want the southern border secured. Okay. Independents overwhelmingly favor an end to illegal immigration. Republicans, of course, do as well. So when you're dealing with a supermajority like that, all agreeing that the southern border has to be secured and illegal immigration crushed, I assure you, this is the very last thing that Democrats want to be talking about right now. Especially given that we're starting to see the fall surge for Republican candidates. Remember, I've been telling you this. I've been telling you this for months now. Don't believe the polls, Republic. Well, now you can believe him. All right. Republicans always pull horribly in the late summer into mid-September. It happens every single year in every election cycle. Glenn Youngkin was down 10 points to Terry McAuliffe at the end of August of last year. You can look it up yourself, Google it yourself. And the race started to tighten right around this time in mid-summit. September. That's why you could start believing the polls, and guess what we're seeing all across the country? MAGA Republican candidates are beginning to surge. It happens in every single election cycle. We're seeing the surge in Pennsylvania. We're seeing the surge in Georgia. We're seeing the surge in Arizona. We're seeing the surge in Nevada. Right, the Republican Laxalt looks like he's going to turn Nevada Senate red for huge pickup in the sun, along with Herschel Walker in Georgia. Republicans is surging, and just as the surge is beginning, what's happening with the Democrats? They're calling out the National Guard to kick migrants out of their posh elitist vacation spots after they voted for that. From an optics perspective, it's an absolute disaster, and it's going to help crush the Democrats just weeks from now. Can't wait. That's all they do. But now they're freaking out after a huge Trump legal when you're not gonna want to miss it. And now, what happened, left boys? I thought you were supposed to be the compassionate ones. I thought you guys were the ones to give the shirt off your own back for the kids and the migrants, but just like that vote, just as fast as group of illegal migrants from Florida came, they've gone. You see how quick to act and how efficient these Democrats are when there's actual motivation to get some. In fact, significantly less than 24 hours after these migrants landed in Martha's Vineyard, they're already gone. As magically a group of buses came in within a couple hours to pick them up and bring them literally anywhere but Martha's Vineyard. Typical Democrats. Problems don't exist. Problems only exist if it happens within the confines of their gated communities. The same thing that we saw with all the rioting in 2020. Well, once again, liberal hypocrisy is showing. We covered the hypocrisy in general in this situation, but now let's talk about the Democrat response, because it brings up another point entirely. We've got some stuff to get into, folks. So let's roll the tape. Alright, friends. So take a look at this. That was quick. Buses arrive at Martha's Vineyard and deport illegals off the island, and Wednesday Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and 2 planes carrying illegal immigrants to the island of Martha's Vineyard, an exclusive elite, a liberal community that prides itself on its tolerance and its sanctuary status, rather than fly the illegals in the dead of night hidden from public view like Joe Biden. Governor DeSantis flew the migrants, the leftist enclave, in broad daylight. Democrats were furious that Governor DeSantis would pull off such a stunt. How dare he expose the liberal left for their disgusting hypocrisy? And speaking of hypocrisy, the Gateway pundit is not lying when they describe Martha's Vineyard as a liberal community that prides itself on its tolerance and sanctuary status. Here's a poster of a photo that you could find on the island of Martha's Vineyard. We respect women. We value Black lives. We stand with our LGBT community members. We stand with immigrants, with refugees, and with indigenous people and people of all faiths. We stand with our community. Well, let's just say Martha's Vineyard isn't exactly living up to that 4th bullet point, because almost immediately as the migrants landed, they've already been kicked off the island. We stand with immigrants and refugees and indigenous people. We just want them to stand on the other side of the shore. We'll stand here and they'll stand all the way over there, completely stupid. On Friday, less than 36 hours later, the sanctuary island of Martha's Vineyard deported the illegal aliens in buses. Buses have arrived in Edgartown to transport migrants from St. Andrew's Parish House. There was 1 big bus and 2 shorter buses to transport folks off the island. People with bags are taking selfies and hugging volunteers goodbye. I mean, talking about compassionate liberals, apparently the limit of their compassion is less than 30 hours after such a big talk about how the rich should help the poor, and how sanctuary cities need to provide shelter and services for illegal migrants to cross the border. And of course, liberal tolerance and liberal compassion was tested here. And once again, Liberals prove that they care more about their exclusive property status, real estate prices, and community safety a whole lot more than anything else. And liberals do what liberals do best: they ship the problem somewhere else. Completely ridiculous. I mean, what do you think's gonna happen? The same thing that always happens, and the same thing that happens in every Democrat, city and state. All of these illegal migrants are going to be sent to the least affluent communities. They're going to dust off their hands and say, well, it's your problem, now deal with it, and they'll leave them stranded. They'll inject them into working class communities to compete for working class jobs, to continue to put a strain on public services and public schools. And of course, they'll probably pat themselves on the back while they do it. Oh, how compassionate! We're so compassionate. We support you. We just don't support you here. Run along, hasn't off to the ghetto with you. It comes back to the same point once again. First of all, it's rules for the not for me. But secondly, it falls in line with what we always see when it comes to Democrats. They ship the problem to somebody else, and they continue to virtue signal about it. Their policies are going to continue to cause harm, and communities that they are not a part of, inner city communities, are the ones that are hit the hardest by illegal immigration. And then, of course, they're gonna campaign and try to get re-elected endlessly off the same problems that they ship elsewhere. They decimate the community, and then they run on platforms of government reliance and stimulus: vote for us. The economy's so bad, we're gonna give you a $500. And it's the same thing with illegal migrants. The higher the influx of non-skilled illegal migrants into the country, the more downward pressure on wages there is, especially at the bottom end of the economic scale. Wages continue to plummet and go down and down and down. And then they run campaigns on how wages aren't keeping up with inflation. Yeah, no, Sherlock, it's you. You're the problem. And this right here is the kind of stuff that we're talking about when we mentioned elitist liberals. This is the epitome of elitist liberalism. More Black Lives Matter, we're advocates for Black lives, they keep telling you, but if you look at all of their communities, they're all living in the most white communities you could possibly imagine. I mean, for Pete's sakes, even Patrisse Cullors and the rest of these Black Lives Matter hacks. What's the first thing they did after making millions off their bill and grift? Well, they bought a house in Topanga Canyon, the whitest zip code in California. Democrats cause problems, and then they run on fixing the problems that they cause. And then, of course, they never actually fix them, because that would essentially be counterproductive. I mean, it's kinda like Big Pharma. For instance, there's a reason why there isn't billions upon billions of dollars in cancer research. I mean, there is a significant amount of money in researching this type of stuff, but not nearly as much as you would think, considering how deadly cancer is. Well, that's because there's no real incentive for pharmaceutical companies and healthcare companies to cure cancer, because it's a cash cow for them. It's the same sort of concept. And speaking of leftwards now campaigning on the problems that they caused, Joe Biden is outraged that Ron DeSantis would do something so despicable like sending 50 illegal migrants on a beautiful summer vacation in Martha's Vineyard. Thank you so much for listening. God bless. I'll be back soon with another report. God speak to each and every one of you. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you for all of your kind words.